This is the first in a series of videos that will go over the menu settings and functionality on the Panavision DXL camera. So we're going to start by going into our project settings, and one quick thing I want to show before we go in there is you see this mode button here that is also your back button. The screen you see now is your home screen, which has all the most important information that an operator or an assistant would want to see. So starting with project settings, very first one is resolution. So this menu is laid out a little differently than on the average camera. It is based around the type of lens you're using, spherical or anamorphic. If we go into spherical, the resolutions that show up here are your typical resolutions you would use with a spherical lens. So you have your full raster, 2:1, widescreen, and HD crop. And as we go down in resolution, you can see that the settings are all the same at the different resolutions. As with all RED cameras, when you set your resolution, it is actually cropping the sensor area that is being recorded. If we go to the anamorphic 2, which is a 2x squeeze anamorphic lens setting, you can see here we have our 6:5 aspect ratio on the sensor. And at the end of the day, this is fairly equivalent to an Alexa being set to 4:3 mode. Same settings for a 1.3 squeeze, and then you've got your resolutions that would be ideal for 1:5. Look around area is just that. That's your look around area for monitoring. Next setting under project settings is your codec. And there's a few things to go over in this one. First one is your record options. You can either do straight RAW by itself, RAW in ProRes, RAW in DNX, or you can do ProRes by itself or DNX by itself. So let's pretend we're doing a RAW and ProRes shoot. Our Redco setting is just that, compression ratio. As you can see, these ratios are not available, and there can be a variety of reasons for that. Anything from the resolution being too high and the camera just doesn't have the bandwidth to record at this compression ratio. Could also be because you're also doing a simultaneous proxy file. So it's good to look at the combinations that work or don't work based on compression ratio. So we're at 6:1 now. We move over to ProRes. You have two options, 4K or 2K. Main thing to note here is that when you're set to 4K, your 4444 codec options are not available. In order to highlight those or to be able to select those, you've got to be in ProRes 2K mode. And the dimensions display there, that's just a status info. You can't change that. And then obviously you have your DNX HD down here, but since we're set to ProRes right now in the file format, that setting is grayed out. But it works the same way as ProRes. Sensor scan flip is essentially an image inversion, which is recorded. So if you set that to on, the image will be recorded upside down. Time base is the equivalent of a project frame rate. So you see all your normal frame rates here, standard cinema and broadcast frame rates. We'll just leave that at 2398. Slate is what you would see on any other camera. Your ID, position, there's a color choice also, as well as production information. Shutter is of course your shutter angle, which you can choose from the presets here, or you can go into custom and you have granular control. Timecode gives you a few options. You have time of day, you have edge, and the difference between these two is that time of day is just that. Edge is basically just a counter that is based on the actual record time. So if you hit record, it'll start counting. When you hit stop, it'll stop, and it'll tell you, this clip is 2 minutes long. You hit record again for a few seconds, you stop, and it'll say, oh, this clip is 5 seconds long. That's all that is. Source, you have a few options here. And I'll start with these two. Internal is the internal ambient circuit. It is a very high accuracy ambient timecode circuit. When you set it to internal, the only way to jam it is with a wireless ambient timecode. External still uses the internal ambient circuit, but allows you to jam it on the physical connector on the camera if you're using just a hardwired box. And lastly, your last option here is RTC, which is the camera's internal clock, which is not the ambient circuit, so it is a less accurate clock. It's just one that just you set a random time of day or whatever and it just goes. Pre-record is how much time is being cached to the red mag prior to you hitting the record button. And that concludes the project settings menu demonstration.